Go.
Okay, awesome. Welcome, everyone. My name is Will Moss. I am going to be your host or your moderator for this evening or this afternoon's event. I'm super excited to see all of you all that have taken the time to join us and to learn more about this particular team within Microsoft, the Business Applications and Platform team. Like I said, all-star studded panel of Black professionals at Microsoft. I think we have 9 different folks that are going to represent the BAP team. So super excited to hear from them. This is our first event with this particular team, so we're super excited. But a little bit of housekeeping, as you can see on the screen. Please stay on mute so we can minimize any distractions. And please turn your video off. Like I said, we'll have an opportunity to do a photo op and that kind of thing at the end of the event. You can turn your video on. But during that presentation, we're gonna have the Microsoft folks turning their video on so that you all will know who you're talking to. And then also the Microsoft folks will be in the chat with you. This is a live and interactive event. So I'm going to ask the Microsoft folks that are here, do engage with our candidates, please, in the chat. If they ask questions, please answer those questions if you're not speaking or presenting. And to our candidates, introduce yourself in the chat, ask questions in the chat as we go. And this will be a worthwhile event for you and a worthwhile experience. All right. So now that housekeeping is out of the way, like I said, please stay on mute and disable your video, and we'll go ahead and get started. Now, the first thing I like to do at our events is set expectations on what we're going to cover during the event. So our event agenda. So I'm going to do a brief welcome from myself, and that'll only take a couple of minutes. We'll give you a little bit of background on our partnership with Microsoft, what has led us up to the current event that we're doing today, and the opportunity for you. Then I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker, who is Justin Graham, General Manager, Process Insights Business. So looking forward to our keynote presentation by Justin. And then we're going to introduce you to the team members from Microsoft BAP that have volunteered their time to share their experiences, to talk a little bit about their path to Microsoft, what they do at Microsoft, what they like about working for Microsoft, and to give you that diverse perspective from each individual so that you can learn a little bit more, get a feel, relate to some of their backgrounds and experiences, and see yourself working at a great company like Microsoft. All right, so we're going to introduce all of the team members. Then we're going to have a panel discussion where I have prepared some questions to ask to the Microsoft team on your behalf as candidates, so we can learn more about the culture, we can learn more about the specific team and what it's like to work at Microsoft. And then also, last but not least, we're going to give you the opportunity to ask questions in the chat, and it will be my job to monitor the chat and grab some of your questions and pose those questions to the team that is here today to answer those questions with some real talk. All right, so that's what we're going to do this evening. And of course, we're going to end the event with next steps so that you know what to do, polish up that resume, get it over to us here at HBCU Connect so that we can share with the Microsoft BAP team. And hopefully some of you all land interviews and get hired, which happens a lot at our events, all right? Okay, so a little bit of background on myself. Like I said, Will Moss, CEO of HBCU Connect, founded the company, over 20 years now at this point. Started a relationship with Microsoft around 2007-ish, 2008. And, originally, on HBCU Connect, Microsoft had their job postings up. They had advertisements about their careers, but Microsoft is a huge company. And even though we're sending lots of folks to their website to apply, Microsoft is really serious about diversity and making sure that our candidates from HBCUs and, Black and African-American professionals that are looking for opportunities like this get a good and fair look from the hiring managers and recruiters, and they don't get lost in the sea of applications that come in online, right? So they posed that challenge to us and said, hey, we love what we're doing, moving the needle online, but what can we do to make sure, your candidates get a good look from our hiring managers? So we came back, met with my team, came back with the idea of doing diversity recruitment events like this, but in a physical format, after work, networking events where we would invite the team members from Microsoft out to the event, also their hiring managers and their recruiters. And then we would bring candidates all over the country to different, cities and locations in the country, bring them to events, learn about the team, let the team present, and then allow folks to network And then that networking would lead to interviews, typically the next day or the next week. And then folks would get offers and be hired from those events. And that's exactly what happened. We've done events from, Seattle to California to Texas to Georgia, Atlanta, up through North Carolina, DC, Maryland, Virginia, even up to New York. We've done events with Microsoft all over the country. Fast forward to 2020. Unfortunately, COVID-19 hit, but kudos to Microsoft. Instead of canceling events that we had scheduled, instead of canceling them, they said, hey, let's use Microsoft Teams and let's host the events online. Our first online event or virtual event like this was actually with the Microsoft Teams group, who was hiring at the time, just coincidentally. But we hosted the event online. We had great success, great turnout, and decided to continue to do this throughout the pandemic. So kudos to Microsoft for staying dedicated to offering opportunities to you all as candidates. So what is the opportunity for you right here and right now? You need to know that you're in a good place. You're in a good place. You have a great opportunity. This is not just a branding event. Microsoft has open opportunities, and they are looking to hire from this event. So you'll want to listen up. You want to brush up that resume. Make sure you're highlighting your experiences that you have that are relevant to the hiring organization. Make sure we have that resume. We'll give you those next steps, and we're going to share those resumes with Microsoft for them to reach out, set up phone screens and interviews, and hopefully some of you all will be hired from this event, like many folks have been hired from our previous events. All right, so that's the opportunity for you here today. Also, you have the opportunity to ask questions. Like I said, leverage the chat. Not only introduce yourself, drop your LinkedIn profile, but ask questions of the team members from Microsoft that are represented, and they will be here to answer some of those questions. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with our keynote presentation from Justin Graham, General Manager, Process Insights Business. So Justin, if you're ready.
Well, born ready. Let's get into it. I'll edit just a little bit. This won't be a keynote presentation. This will be a keynote conversation. So one of the secrets about me is I work for Microsoft, but I absolutely hate PowerPoint. So there's a long story behind that. But welcome everybody. Thanks for spending some time with us. So my name's Justin Graham. I'm General Manager of our Process Insights business here at Microsoft, which is part of our Business Applications and Platform group. I've been with Microsoft this time for a little over a year and a half, but the first time I was at Microsoft was right out of undergrad for about 8.5 years, a little more than that, from 2002 until early 2011. So to Will's point, in terms of brushing up that resume, I applied for Microsoft my senior year in college, and we're going to talk about this in terms of sponsorship. I had a friend who I knew who sponsored putting my resume at the top of the pile to make sure I got a look from the recruiter. That resulted in an interview, and that resulted in a job offer for a grand total of $66,000 a year of salary in 2002, which at the time was more money than both my parents combined had ever made in their lives. So maybe that story can resonate with some of you over time. I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so big ups to the black and gold, black and yellow, Steelers fan, and all the above. I was prep school educated in Connecticut, college educated in upstate New York, and I now live in Seattle. I've been here since 2007. Ruth gave me some things to talk about. I'll talk about the business later, but the first thing I want to talk about is the journey, because I think since I became a general manager, which is a relatively senior job here, it's interesting how perceptions have shifted when people meet me or people hear about me and they think, oh my God, you're a general manager, like you must be special. You must be an outlier. You must have some innate thing that caused you to break through. So let me first start by telling my story and just tell you how, in many ways, how not special I am and how I'm just like the rest of you, or was. Neither of my parents went to college. One of my parents didn't graduate from high school, later on got a GED. I was born in the late 70s in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, right when the steel industry in the US was collapsing. So I was born into a city that was entering a deep recession that lasted for 10 years or longer. So both my parents worked two jobs at the same time for 15 years to put my sister and I through school, starting at an early age all the way through. Grew up in a house that had one bathroom for four people. So I'll just leave that to your imagination to to imagine what that must have been like. And let's just say my dad and I often lost to my sister and I in terms of bathroom use time over the years. I was fortunate enough and lucky enough to get a scholarship to a New England prep school called Choate Rosemary Hall, where families like the Kennedys and the Hunts and the Icons went. And that was the first example in my life of you make your own luck. I won't tell the full story, but I made my own luck by having a 4.5 GPA that kind of put me on a radar and a list that then got seen by some people. And, they were looking to bring Black kids into these very white schools, very white elite prep schools at the time, as the first virtue signaling of diversity. And I just got lucky and was one of the few that kind of got invited into that world at age 14. And then that sort of led to college, which led to Microsoft. My sister's a doctor, so I'm not the smartest person in the family. So I just paved the way. But the reason I tell this story is I'm not special. I'm another brother and another African American and another person in the struggle, like just the same way all of you, like everyone here has been, both young and old, right? And I look at, there's a lot of folks, I tell people this all the time, for me to make general manager, a few hundred of us had to get thrown against the wall, kicked, beat up, marginalized, gone unrecognized, whatever. And for some reason I was the one that, I don't know, hit the jackpot, whatever. So this is not a story of me being special. This is a story of having reverence for those who came before you, paved the way, right? So my job and reason I'm here is that now that I was granted this position, my job is to pull through as many of us as I humanly possibly can, or as they'll let me, because maybe this time it doesn't take a few hundred of us to get thrown against the wall. For the next one, maybe it only takes 2 or 1. Right. So that's the first part of the keynote. Second part of the keynote is, let's talk about career and two things: calling bluffs and sponsorship. So lessons I learned way too late in my career, but I sort of re-espouse every time I get an opportunity to. So when people ask me for career advice, I give a very simple rubric of how you think about your career by decade, right? And in rough terms, your 20s are about learning, your 30s are about acceleration. If you want to be a senior leader, your 40s are acceleration V2 into leadership, and then you let that sort of determine what your 50s, 60s, and 70s determined to be in your career, right? So for those of you who are earlier stage in your 20s, and this is going to sound crazy, money's not the most important thing, assuming your basic needs can be met. You can put a roof over your head, you can put food in your mouth, you can pay your bills, and you can put roughly 10% of your income in a savings account. And I've been terrible about that, by the way. So contribute to your 401k, get that free money on the employee match, and then put another 10% in a bank account, or as much as you can after that for a rainy day. And we'll get to the later story, because guess what? There will be rainy days. I've been unemployed twice. So the path isn't always smooth. But put yourself in a place in your 20s where you can maximize your learning. And that's like functional learning about the discipline you're in or the industry you're in or the types of products we work on, but just how to operate and how to work in a business environment. Like, accelerate your learning. Spend your 30s accelerating your career. And it doesn't mean you have to wait until you're 30 to accelerate. Hopefully you're accelerating in your 20s too, but spend your 30s accelerating. Because unfortunately, this world still hasn't figured out how to appreciate talent across all ages of folks. So spend your time accelerating if that's who you are, right? If you that's not who everyone else is. Not everyone wants to get move into senior leadership. But if you think that's something you might want, think about acceleration in your 30s. 40s, more acceleration, or if you're like, hey, I'm good, then put yourself in the best position to rake as most money as you humanly can with what the skills you have. And then be in a position to retire at 55. That's my best advice to you. I'm 42, and I literally just had a conversation with my wife last night where I said, we've got to switch some things up, because we're off our 55 goal. So we're selling some things. I'm getting rid of my fun car, so we can keep that goal alive now. So let me then pair that with sponsorship. When you choose where you spend your career time, you choose it in this rubric, in this order. Work with people that are good people that you can trust, that aren't evil. Second, work in a place where you have sponsorship, or that you've seen sponsorship available and operationalized. Then money and package and career and and all that stuff. Sponsorship matters more than how, and unfortunately, in many cases, working hard and delivering results is table stakes. Many of us worked 3 times as hard, delivered 5 times the results, and never get ahead. And the reason for that is sponsorship or lack thereof. So your job in any organization you join is to figure out how to determine if there's sponsorship, not only for you personally, but in general. And there's very specific, I don't have time in this keynote to talk through it, but I'm happy to figure something else. But there's ways you can there's methods you can employ while you're interviewing for jobs where you can interview them about what sponsorship looks like. And you can tell whether that person you're talking to, or that hiring manager, or whatever, that organization does or doesn't have it. So that's the next thing. How I got to this job, sponsorship. And I will. This will be the only time I'll toot my own horn, because I'm a pretty non-horn tooting person, but I'm really dang good at my job. But that hasn't been good enough to get me to this job for a while. This time I figured it out, and I tested sponsorship and bluff calling to make sure that I was putting myself in a position where I knew I would have sponsorship, assuming I deliver, and I always deliver. So that's that was base table stakes, and sponsorship got me into this general management position. Period. End of story. So what that means is, for folks like myself, we have a duty to sponsor. And I think there's maybe 2 people in my organization who are on this call, and at least another 2 or 3 people who have been a critical part of my success in this job. And you know who you are, who are also on this call. And the best thing about this has been, when I got this job and I met these people, they all said, hey, one of us got there, how can we help? And that's what's special about our community. So So sponsorship, and let me talk about bluff calling. I think I've told this story before. I'll soften it because this has been recorded. This is being recorded, so you know how this world is. This might end up on Twitter later. But I won't say which company or how. But there was a point in my career where I was doing really well. Had been promoted a couple of years before. Continuing to do well, and was sort of working towards the next promotion, and had that promotion sort of promised to me, like I was on track. And then right before it happened, the company reorganized, and my group got sort of split up, kind of dissolved. My management chain got blown up, and some left the company, some moved on. And I sort of ended up in a brand new organization with a brand new manager and a brand new management chain all the way up to the CEO. And that happened like right before review time and when promotions are handed out. So I walked into that and said, "Hey, where's my promote? Like, I'm getting promoted, right?" And they said, "No, you're not." And I said, "Oh, that's interesting. Like, did like all of a sudden all those results I delivered and all those things I did that I promised I'd do, like, did those just happen to disappear? Like, did somebody rewrite the history books?" And they're like, "No, well, we reorged and we are reevaluating things." And I was like, "Okay." So I said, "Look, don't agree, but fine. So let's figure out what you need me to do in this new job, and I'm gonna knock that out by 50%, and then you're gonna give me my promotion in 6 months." And so I did. That all happened, and I walked in 6 months later to my mid-year review and said, "Okay, great. Here's the metrics. Where's my promo?" And they said, "No, it's not here yet." I said, "Okay." And I reached into my backpack and I put my resignation letter on the table. I had already been interviewing and accepted another job. My promotion was on the table 2 hours later from my general manager. So I tell that story as the quintessential bluff calling story, because you have to know your value, and you have to know what you bring to the table. And it's if you continue to not demand what you're worth, it is not anyone else's fault but yours if you continue to accept it. First time, it's their fault. Second time, and every time after that, it's your fault. So now, this isn't a speech of overestimating your own value and being unrealistic. Right. And there's lots of folks who can help you understand what you bring to the table, what your value is, coaching, whatever. But if you firmly believe you are being underpaid, under-sponsored, under whatever, you've got to have the courage to make a change for yourself. Now, that sounds easy. And what allowed me to do that is I had a great network and a great set of mentors and coaching support systems. And I leaned on some alumni networks from my prep school days and my college days. And I had I had a cushion that I made for myself that I knew I could sort of fall back into, right? If you don't feel like you have that, that's your first job, right? Your second job is to have enough, we sometimes we call this FU money, but you need to have enough money in the bank to live on for I think all the financial folks say 6 months living expenses, but I'd say start with 2 to 3, because finding a new job usually takes that long from zero on the fast side. But have enough money to live on for 3 months, have a network that you can lean on, and all those things give you the soft landing that you need to call bluffs and demand what you're worth, but realistically and respectfully. That's the key. Now, Ruth wants me to talk about how great BAP is, so let me switch gears for the last bit to talk about how great BAP is. One, because sponsorship, and I've seen it not only for myself, but I've also seen it for others, a number of others, right? So it's proven out a couple of different times. The second is, if you kind of geek out about, if you're kind of an efficiency person, or man, I want businesses to run more efficiently, or how do people do their jobs more efficiently, you kind of geek out on that stuff, this is probably the best place to be at Microsoft. like we're working on some really innovative things that are going to transform how businesses run. All kinds of businesses run over time. And there's deep tech stuff to get into, or if you're like me and you more care about how do you connect the tech to real, people who do real jobs and things like that. More on the user experience side, you can do that too. There's all kinds of roles that you can get into, but what keeps me here is the people. So there's not a much better set of people I've ever kind of come across to work in and around. And the Black community and the camaraderie around the Black community here is unparalleled to any other place I've been in my career, and I've been a number of places in my career. So and I think others will kind of come on and give you their perspective from where they sit. But I think this is one of the premier places to be at this stage, given everything that's kind of going on in the world around us. So I think I'm probably around time, but hopefully this has been just useful for all of you to move on and just some things. But I'll leave you with, I'm not any more special than anyone else on this call, and the path here wasn't rosy. For sure, because there was ups and downs, but there's some very specific things I learned and employed that gave me the best optionality to kind of get to this type of opportunity. And now that I'm here, I look forward to bringing as many of you through this narrow opening that I've been allowed to crawl through, so that we can widen it along the way. So thanks, appreciate it.
Awesome, Justin. Let me thank you for being our keynote, but can I ask one question?
Yes.
So my question is, first of all, I think that was awesome insight, and just some really good information to share with our candidates. So everybody give them a round of applause virtually. But Justin, can you give some context around what it looks like to be a GM at Microsoft? For those that don't know the structure, don't know what your team looks like, how many folks, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So when I took over this business, there were 13 of us. There's now, I think, 51 of us. And there probably will be, if I continue to do my job right, there'll probably be double that number in a year. So we're growing. What it looks like, and my leadership team is 4. And 3 women, 1 African American, not including myself, on my leadership team. So we put our money where our mouth is when we talk about this type of stuff. And what it looks like day to day, I hate to say it, a lot of meetings. And some days I miss writing specs and architecture designs, but a lot of meetings. But my job is primarily, I'm trying to think, 6 corners ahead in terms of what the world's going to look like, what the macro business environment is going to look like, and then making strategic calls about where to steer the business to put my team in the best position to succeed. I often refer to myself as overhead to my team, because I don't write a line of code or write a word of spec. But my job is to steer the organization to the best direction so that everyone in it can succeed. So that's what I do.
And briefly, who are the clients for BAP? What do clients look like?
Ooh, I don't know if I can legally mention customer names, but what I can tell you is every single, almost, if not every, close to every Fortune 500 company uses some portion of what we build. And in particular, my business is incubation, so we're very early stage, which is what I love to do. So when this business gets to like 100 million, I'm going to be like, it's too big. I need to go back and do something, early. But but we've got about 20 customers evaluating us right now, half of which are in the Fortune 500.
Awesome. So let me be the first to thank you for being our keynote. And I think it's awesome. It looks like you'll be a part of our panel discussion as well.
I'm going to try. I have to pick up my son from school, so I'll be able to sit around for about another 30 minutes or so.
Okay, so excellent. So to our candidates, if you have questions specifically for Justin, drop those questions in the chat. And then Justin, if you can keep an eye on the chat for any of those questions that you can answer, we would greatly appreciate it. So thanks for being an awesome keynote for us. And let me continue with our next panelist. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to introduce the different team members that will be a part of our panel discussion. And the first person that I'm going to introduce is Ruth Ogonaike, Senior Software Engineer. So Ruth, if you're ready. I think you're on mute.
Got it. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Ruth Ogonaike. I am a Senior Software Engineer in the Insights app Artificial Intelligence team at Microsoft. I've been working here now for about 4 years, and I'm originally from Nigeria. I moved here about 6 years ago for my graduate degree in University of Washington. And since finishing from grad school, I've been working with Microsoft.
So is it okay if I ask you a couple of follow-up questions?
Yes.
So how did you get your foot in the door at Microsoft? Did you submit your resume online, or what was that process like for you?
Yeah, so at school we have direct career fairs held at school, and you get Microsoft recruiters actually come to school, and you have the opportunity to talk to them directly. And sometimes you're able to interview right there, or they can schedule an interview the next day. So that's how I got my foot into the door with Microsoft. Yes.
Awesome. And so you've been at Microsoft now for roughly 4 years?
Yes, correct.
So have you always had the same position and worked on the same team, or have you worked on different teams or held different positions?
So far, I've worked with the same team. The products we've been building has been different. So every time we change product, it feels like I'm joining a new team. I haven't always.
I think somebody accidentally muted you. Oh, you can unmute.
All right. I don't know when I got muted, but my response was I've always been a software engineer on the team. I haven't had the same position, but I've been promoted over the years on Microsoft team. Yeah.
So what technologies do you use? Because I know we have a lot of software engineers that are actually on the call, candidates. So they may be interested if their skills transfer, that kind of thing. So what technologies have you used, or languages?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that a lot of times at least 3 times we've had to build new product, and sometimes we have to change the technology stack completely. But Microsoft provides the resources for you to ramp up on new technologies, even if you don't have experience. So you have the opportunity to learn that. Currently, we primarily build machine learning models. So I use a lot of Python for machine learning models, and C# for web services. All our services are deployed on Azure, so you get to use a lot of Microsoft Azure services, from the data factory for pipelines and hosting on Service Fabric. So those are primarily what I work with, C# and Python in Microsoft Azure stack.
Awesome. So I got a couple more questions for you. And that first one is, do you have a favorite project that you've worked on since you joined Microsoft?
Great question. So I would say yes. So I think we've always done things that are related to providing insights and predictions, because it's a lot of AI heavy. But I think my favorite would be the search and browse, where users, which are like companies, are able to get insights on whether a customer is going to subscribe again to their product or buy their product again. So I think that would be my favorite project. It entailed working with machine learning models, and also hosting some of the services on Service Fabric cluster and Kubernetes. So these were new technologies. I love to learn new things, and because I did research in school. So when I feel more excited when I don't know something, and I'm learning new things. So that excites me and makes me want to work more. So that'll be one of my favorite. Yeah.
Awesome. So my last question for you is, what is it that you like most about working for Microsoft? Can be anything, doesn't it?
Yeah.
for you
So
personally?
for my team, the great thing about working with Microsoft is you get to have the opportunity to work in your areas of interest. So, and because a lot of the things, as for my team, a lot of the things are novel ideas. So you get to start something from the inception. You think about the design, the components, how do you want to deploy it? So it makes you think in all, like in a very wide variety and not just coding. So you actually start with inception. So I get to design the components and then I get to implement it and also decide how I want to deploy it. So that's the great thing I like about Microsoft, because I'm always learning. And when you're always learning, you're not bored at work. So
Awesome,
yeah.
awesome. What does your team look like? How big is your team?
We're about 80 something, and that's just for my GM. So we do work with other Microsoft teams, but for my immediate teams, like comprising of data scientists and software engineers and program managers, we're about 80 plus. Yeah.
Awesome. So Ruth, let me thank you for being one of our panelists. To our candidates, if you have questions specifically for Ruth as a senior software engineer at Microsoft, drop those questions in the chat. And Ruth, if you can keep an eye on the chat for any questions you might be able to answer, and then we'll bring you back for the panel discussion.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so thanks, Ruth. And our next panelist is Sam Adiogan, Principal Software Engineering Manager within Microsoft. And Sam is also an HBCU grad. So Sam, if you're ready.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I think I just disappeared into the background. Let me try to turn it off. Okay. Oh, sorry. My camera has been misbehaving all week. Anyway, I'll just turn it off. Sorry about that. Hi, everyone. I'm Samuel. I went to an HBCU and I've been in the US for about 10 years now. I've been at Microsoft for 6 years, less than 6 years, but about 6 years. And in that time, I've worked on a number of teams. I've worked in Office. I started out in Office, actually. And after Office, I've worked on a number of incubation related projects. I was on a team called Gig Jam. That was sort of where I would say I got a lot of experience working as a front-end dev, because I mostly do front-end. And after Gig Jam, I worked on Power Virtual Agents, which is sort of how I came into the BAP org. And I was a foundation member of Power Virtual Agents. So right from the outset of the team, up until transitioning the product to general availability. And it was also on Power Virtual Agents that I became an engineering manager. I moved to Power Apps about a year ago. And on Power Apps, what I own is called the Maker Portal, which is sort of like the main portal experience for managing not just applications, but all kind of components that are in the Power Platform. So my team is responsible for Notion sort of solutioning, application lifecycle management, and the management of the portal itself. So anyone that typically ships an experience to BAP or in Power Platform at some point would have had to talk to my team. So we're sort of involved in that regard with working with partners. And one of the questions you mentioned is what has it been like coming to Microsoft or transitioning into the company? I think I've been very fortunate. For me, going to an HBCU made a difference for me. I went to FISC, and FISC has a lot of relationship with tech companies. So I was recruited from college for my internships I'd interned at Google and Microsoft before. And at the time, I had offers from Microsoft and Google. And part of why I chose Microsoft was my experience interviewing. It wasn't a typical interview experience that I had. Like, I felt like I was seen and heard as a person. I felt a real connection with the interviewers. And at that point, to me, I sort of thought about it this way. If my interview experience could be this good, I wonder what it would be like working for this company. And it's been a blast for me. I've had a lot of people that went to college with me that were here. I found a good community at Microsoft and in Seattle as well. I've been plugged into Africans at Microsoft. That was actually how I got the opportunity at Gig Jam, through someone that was plugged into BAM and Africans at Microsoft. So it's been a fun ride. The best part of working at Microsoft for me is the care for people. I'm able to do that more now that I'm also a manager. There's emphasis on work-life balance. It's not just a thing that people say, but we legitimately think about it And even in discussions around people and promotions, there's a sense in which you look at the person, what they're trying to achieve long term, what are their career aspirations, but also how is the person doing that without burning out. So I've loved that care really exists just across board, and especially at BAP, I think. So that's my 5 minutes spiel.
So Sam, while I have you here, as a software engineering manager, can you talk a little bit about what your team looks like, as far as the types of people you have on your team?
Oh, right. So on my team now, I have two women and 5 men on my team. There is someone that is Hispanic on my team. We have a couple of white people. The team is quite diverse, actually. We have folks from all over. I would love to have more Black people on the team. But I think in general, relative to maybe what the company looks like, I think the team is quite diverse, and I'm always looking for opportunities to do that in general too.
Sure, and they're all software engineers.
Yes, they're all software engineers, and specifically they do front end.
Okay, so what type of technologies or languages are they using to work on the front end?
Yeah, so my team is primarily based on, we use React, we use TypeScript, we use what I would consider to be modern tech stack on the UX. We are leveraging things like React Query. We use other technologies like GraphQL as well, which is anyone that is interested in doing front end. Those are some of the technologies that you would want to know about and you would want to use as well too. Yeah, because of the, yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, because of the complexity of some of the problems that we solve, we use those frameworks in very interesting ways that may not always be obvious if you've not done like a production level work with those languages. So that makes the work fun.
Awesome. So my last question for you, what is it that you like most about working for Microsoft?
I think it would be work-life balance, honestly. I think there is that care for people. I know for some people, folks have different motivation, like compensation and whatnot. I think that's, for the most part, quite competitive, but having an opportunity to be able to disconnect from work and pay attention to my family. I just recently got married. My wife also works at Microsoft. Being able to know that we can take time for ourselves and our careers will not be impacted is very important to us. And I'm just blessed that I'm able to, or we're both able to have successful careers at Microsoft and not sacrifice our lives while doing it. So I like that.
Awesome. So Sam, thank you for being a part of our panelists. We'll bring you back for our panel discussion, but for our candidates, if you have questions specifically for Sam as a principal software engineering manager, drop those questions in the chat. And then Sam, if you could keep an eye on the chat for any questions that come through that you can answer.
Sounds good, thanks.
Awesome, appreciate it. All right, next, let me introduce Samad Attoro, Software Engineer 2 at Microsoft. So Samad, if you're ready.
Yes, thank you, Will. Thank you very much for what you're doing. I think this is very, very important. I'm probably the newest at Microsoft here on the team here. I joined Microsoft last November as a software engineer. Before that, I was a consultant for an IT company back in Indiana, where I lived and worked for 15 years. So how did I come to Microsoft? So I moved to Atlanta, like I said, in August 2020. And a year after that, a recruiter contacted me on LinkedIn, and that was my foot in the door. And at that time, I didn't even know that I could make it to Microsoft. It wasn't my radar at all. And I had a friend who was interested in Microsoft and has been trying. And I told my recruiter initially, hey, I don't know if I want to do that, but I know someone who can. And then that someone who can told me, what are you talking about, Samad? We have the same experience. No, and I told him, okay, Microsoft uses C#. I'm a Java developer, and I'm comfortable with doing Java development. And but then I thought about it, and I contacted the recruiter back, and so I got put in the pile for recruiting, and then so a few months later, I had my interview, and it was positive. So the point is, do not let any doubt set you back, right? Microsoft is a big company. There are so many opportunities, and had I left my self-doubt set me back, I won't be here today. And my friend who couldn't make it into Microsoft, he had applied several times, but he wasn't able to get in, right? Because you need a way to get in. You need somebody to open that door for you. And I think that's what you're doing now is great. You're putting people, you give people the opportunity to have their name in the pie. And so my friend now, once I got in, I opened the door a little wider, and I put his name in there, and he was interviewed, and he did good, and my team extended him an offer, and hopefully he'll be joining us soon here. So yeah,
Awesome.
it's been great. Yeah.
So what is it so far? I know you've been there for roughly 5 months. What is it that you like most so far about working for Microsoft, or what's different?
It's the borders of knowledge in people and in available free resources. Why? So whatever issue you have, there is a solution there. And we also have these office hours where there are people who have a certain expertise in a certain area. They have an hour or a 30-minute or an hour meeting every week. And so when you work on something new and you can't figure it out, you can join these meetings and ask questions, and then you have your answer, and then you go back to do what you do. So I think I love that. You never stuck. If you're stuck, there's some you reach out to people, and everybody is eager to help you. Especially on my team, everybody's helping each other. So that's probably what I love the most about Microsoft.
Awesome. So let me ask another question. So you said you have a background as a Java developer. Now
Yes.
you're at Microsoft. What technologies are you using now, and what project are you working on? If it's
Now I actually work in the Process Insight team under Justin, my general manager. So we use C# for the backend and React for the front end. C# is a little bit similar to Java, so I was able to ramp up pretty fast, but they give you time to ramp up. Everybody here is new, different background, and everybody is just learning, and that's part of it. We have enough resources to, when you put your time in, you can get up to speed very fast and ramp up, so you can be productive with your work.
Awesome. So Samad, let me thank you for being one of our panelists, and for that background, that insight. I think a lot of people will relate to that. So I'm going to ask our candidates if you have questions specifically for Samad, who just joined Microsoft, who has a background as a Java developer, now transitioning to a project with Microsoft. If you have questions for Samad, drop those questions in the chat, and then Samad, if you can keep an eye on the chat for any questions you can answer, then we'll bring you back for our panel discussion.
I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, our next panelist is Anthony Yemitan, software engineer. Anthony, if you're ready.
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction, Will. So, sorry, I'm a software engineer on the Dynamics 365 customer service team. And what I work on, sorry, you guys hearing that
all
as well?
These guys work for Microsoft, and that's a software.
Hey, make sure to stay on mute to our candidates. Make sure to stay on mute. Thank you.
Okay. Just listen.
So so I'm a software engineer on the Dynamics 365 customer service team, more specifically the omnichannel product. I've been here for almost a year. Next week will make a year. And some previous experiences I've had have been at like Intuit and American Express as a software engineer as well. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We're glad to have you. So what was the process like for you to get hired? You know, and if you want, you could talk a little bit about. So far, no one's really touched on the details of the interview process. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about what that interview process was like for you.
Yeah, I could talk about that. So my sophomore year of college, I got a message on LinkedIn from a recruiter at Microsoft, while I was doing another internship. And at first, I know it sounds funny, but I thought it was a scam. And my friend and I, we were just talking about Microsoft, and I said, "Oh yeah, I got this scam message," and he was like, "Let me see the message." He was like, "This is not fake." So I reached out to the recruiter, and I got through to an interview and made it to the final round. And basically, the first round is just the one coding question, data structures and algorithms. And then the final round, you typically have 4 interviews. This was for internship, so 4 interviews, and 3 were coding questions, and I think 1 was behavioral. And I actually didn't make it through that year. But I interviewed again a second time. I made it to the final round again, didn't make it through. And then the third time, they say third time's a charm. I interviewed for a full-time position, and I made it through. And the interview process was the same from year to year. I think it's just I would say it's the same overall. I would say the internship interviews were more easy level questions, but the full-time interviews were more medium to hard type questions.
Awesome. So congratulations to our candidates. If you're listening, you might not get that offer from that first interview or that second interview, but I've heard this similar stories of folks that I've interviewed several times and then been hired. And in some cases, folks that are now, you know, one of our keynote speakers, same story. He interviewed several times, didn't make it, but finally got in the door, and now he's a senior leader there within Microsoft. So Anthony, what is it that you like most about working at Microsoft so far?
I would say Justin touched on this, is the efficiency. You see it on a day-to-day basis in our scrums, in our meetings. Our managers are always communicating to us that, like, let's just keep improving the process. Like, let's see where are we finding the pitfalls and what can we do to better your work-life experience. And it's also the work-life balance as well. That's great here. But yeah.
Awesome. So Anthony, excited to have you as a part of our panel discussion and one of our panelists. So I thank you for that. But I'll ask you to keep an eye on the chat, and to our candidates, if you have specific questions for Anthony, drop those questions in the chat. And then Anthony, if you can keep an eye on the chat, and then we'll bring you back for our panel discussion. Thanks, Anthony. All right, our next panelist is Tareme Kedwa Muzokora. So she's a software engineer at Microsoft. And Tareme, if you are ready.
Yes, hi, Will. I won't be able to switch on my video because of my internet. Hopefully, in the future, I'll be able to when you get into the panel questions. I'm part of the Business 360 AI team. I currently live in Vancouver, but my team is in Seattle, so I work remotely. I came from South Africa, where I studied electrical and computer engineering, and my journey to Microsoft has been an interesting one. I got to join the team and know of Microsoft through an event very similar to the one that we have today. Microsoft came to my school for Careers Day, and I heard of a program called Africa to Redmond. So the program is an initiative by Microsoft to employ graduates from Africa for software engineering and program manager roles. So at first, I felt it's going to be difficult to get in because this is the whole of Africa that they are looking for, and only like a few candidates would be taken. But eventually I gained the courage, and so I applied, and so I took the opportunity, and I got in as a software engineer. And it's been 2 years now in Microsoft, and it's been exciting and rewarding, and there's been lots to learn and so much growth as an individual. I'm a part of a team that develops secure and compliant platforms used to test AI models that are still in development. And in this team, I get to be exposed to so many skills, tech skills in Azure services, and also in coding skills in languages like C# and Python. I think my improvement in technical skills since my journey began has been a continuous moving trend. I learn something new and exciting every day. There's always a new problem that requires a unique and a very creative solution. This is why I enjoy being a part of Microsoft as a whole, because I get to be exposed to new technologies and better and more advanced techniques to solving problems. I think the culture at Microsoft has positively shaped how I navigate being in a team and how I relate to people. And I see myself in the future growing beyond where I am now to be able to build a really strong and good career with Microsoft. I enjoy mostly I think what I like the most is the work-life balance and the flexibility to work on what excites you. So every day you get to wake up excited to go to work. Yeah, that's it for me.
Awesome. So you say you're currently in Vancouver?
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. Do you have plans to move to Seattle? Folks, make sure to stay on mute, please. I'm sorry.
Yes, not in the near future. My manager is okay with me working remotely and visit whenever I can. So I moved to Vancouver and I loved it. So I wanted to stay because I've built a family here and friends, and moving over to the US would take that away from me. So I chose to stay here.
Awesome. It's awesome to hear that Microsoft and the teams have that flexibility. So you pretty much covered all of the bases with my questions. So let me thank you for being one of our panelists. And to the folks in the chat, if you have questions, drop those questions in the chat. And then Tareme Kidzwa, if you can keep an eye on the chat for those questions that you can answer. All right.
Awesome. Thanks.
Sure. And then we'll bring you back for our panel discussion here shortly. All right. Our next panelist is Smith Codillo, Principal Program Manager within Microsoft. So Smith, if you're ready.
Sure. Oops, seems like I lost camera again. Yeah, back. Okay. Thank you all. I'm Smith Codillo. I'm originally from Haiti, but I currently live in the Seattle, in a suburb of Washington called Sammamish. So I work for, obviously, Microsoft has been going on almost 13 years now. I joined Microsoft as through the intern program. So I went to Drexel University, which is a co-op school where you are required to do at least 2 6-month internships. So one of my internship was with Microsoft. So I did 6 months working for the company, and I joined the company. I was obviously new to the company, learning so many things. So I started as a developer, but within like a year after I came back, I switched discipline moved from a software developer to a product manager, and worked throughout the company in multiple teams, different products, different services. So one thing that I wanted to call out here, so I hear from the chat that folks, talk about, how do people get into management? So at Microsoft, one of the things that actually excite that really Microsoft has that is a good thing is you can excel either in the management track or on IC, like individual contributor role. So it depends of what excites you and what you think fits your needs and your want for a given time. So in my time at Microsoft, I managed teams, and now I decided to take an IC role, but my impact is still, I still have impact on what I do, and continue to work and explore and learn at the company. So the other thing I wanted to call out here, it's one thing that I think Justin mentioned, it's about networking. So the 80-20 rule really applies. I use that a lot. Even I remember when I graduated, one of my early mentors told me this 80-20 rule, that 20% of what you do, which is what Justin called your table stake, right? You know, you're getting a paycheck, you're expecting to basically excel. But what's gonna make life for you easier, for you to move around, find different roles, change disciplines, it's the kind of mentors, the kind of network that you build, you know, to while you are at the company. So for me, the things that really excite me, get me really excited about working for Microsoft. I remember when I graduated, I had offers from other companies on the East Coast, but I decided to move out West because for me, three things: is the scale and impact and access. So scale, if you come to Microsoft, everything we do, if you think about our user base and our, you know, we want to empower every individual on the planet to achieve the full potentials. So that's a very bold statement, right? So everything we do, we need to thrive and build to support that kind of reach, right? So meaning when you think about big data, whatever the system that you're building is you have to think about the scale, how to scale that to billions or petabytes of data, whatever, right? Everything has to be done at scale. And then impact, obviously, the software, the application that we build are being used by other people to build multi-million-dollar or multi-billion-dollar businesses. So what you do will have real impact in people's life or livelihood. And then access. Access at Microsoft, you are always what we call one ping away. So you can ping any engineer, any individual at the company to ask them for advice, or if you're working on a problem, you have access to that really network of folks, you know, within the company and technology. So for me, those are the things that really excite me. That's why I love working for Microsoft, and that's why I stay around for so long.
Awesome, awesome. You hit all of my points that I wanted to cover, Smith. So as a program manager, however, principal program manager at Microsoft, I know there are a lot of candidates that are interested in program management opportunities, but for the sake of time, I'm going to ask our candidates that have program management related questions to ask those questions in the chat. And then Smith, if you can keep an eye on the chat for any of those questions that you can answer, and then we'll come back to the discussion.
Okay.
Thanks, Smith. All right, so our last but not least on our panels today is Giovanni Hossang, software engineer at Microsoft. So Giovanni, if you're ready.
Greetings, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good. Thanks.
Nice. Hi, everybody. My name is Giovanni Hossang. I came to Microsoft last year, September 2020, but let me just tell you a little bit of the background first, how I even got to the US, being in Jamaica. I don't know if any Jamaicans in here, big ups. You don't know, we have to do that. Basically, I went to high school in Jamaica and I finished at one called Arden High School, and some fear came and people talked about, you know, going abroad to study. I had an option in going to the US, but the steps to go to the US was a little bit difficult in terms of SAT and all that. So Canada was an option for me. And luckily I had a brother that could help sponsor. So I went to the University of the West Indies for 1 year in Jamaica. And then I went to Canada as a transfer student. Started like, you know, Bachelor of Science in Computing Science. Got involved with a lot of initiatives such as like Black Boys Code, volunteer here and there. And through those experiences, it like somebody just popped up and said, hey, on LinkedIn, there's an opportunity at Microsoft. Hey, go interview and see how it is. And I did the interview and it went well. It was a lot of work because the year before I did, you know, a lot of practice, making sure that I was, you know, taking in as much as I can, learning as much as I can. I had a lot of field interviews that the year before, but then I feel like all of those opportunities that were missed prepared me for the Microsoft one. And yeah, did an internship at Microsoft first with a team called Dynamics for Talent. It was like an enterprise recruiting software. And then I came back just last year, September 2020, working for Dynamics for marketing. So yeah, it's been a good time so far. I really love the environment and the Black community here. I think everybody has really gotten a chance to talk about it, but like we feel connected. You know, I came in during the online environment, and it was it was good to be able to connect with people outside of just the team, and that kind of have similar experiences and all of that. So that was very interesting, exciting, and just overall like something that I was really glad for that to be the start of my career. So I've been here for 1.5 years now, and yeah, I'm just chilling.
Awesome, man. So what is it so far that you like most about working at Microsoft?
I think people communicate well. When you have a good first team, it really sets you up for success, I believe. Good first team make you know how things are supposed to go in terms of like, good relations building between the rest of your team, how to ask questions, how to, onboard others. And I think one of the big things is just taking as much and learning from others as much as you can. I realized that, I came in with this intimidation factor thinking that, oh, all these Microsoft people, blah, blah, blah. But turns out that people just want to ask the questions, just as long as, prepare. If you're the least knowledgeable in the room, just make sure you're the most prepared. Just so that you really can know what you're talking about. But at the end of the day, if you don't, just ask questions and ask where to go to get information. I think that's something that Microsoft, my team, has really embodied really well, and I'm happy for it.
Are you currently?
How can I help?
Make sure you're on mute to our candidates. I think somebody forgot to mute there. But Giovanni, are you currently working from the Microsoft office, or are you working from home still?
So we're doing the 50-50 thing.
Okay.
Because so there's a thing where if you elect to have a space in the office physically, you can just come in 50% of the time. But if you elect to just work from home, you just stay home. I come in like 50% of the time, just cause. But so I'm at my office now. It's kind of cool. People come in, but it's kind of blurred out. I'm going to come here more, put some Jamaica flags on all them things, but and some damn swag.
I'm sure some people were probably wondering that, so I wanted to slip that in there. But all right, to our candidates and to our Microsoft panelists, if you all from the Microsoft team want to go ahead and turn on your cameras, your video, then we'll go ahead and let some questions come in from our candidates in the chat. And then I'll keep an eye on the chat to call out some of those questions that I see coming in. But then I also have some questions prepared as well to ask the team. So to our candidates, you can leave your video off for now, but to the Microsoft team members, we'd like to have their video feed on. All right, appreciate that. So, all right, so let me go ahead and kick off. I know Justin had to drop, but I believe Ruth O is still with us. So I'm going to ask the first question to you, Ruth, and that is, how do you feel candidates can best prepare for an interview with Microsoft to maximize their chances of being hired? Thoughts on that? I think you're on mute.
Okay. Yeah, for engineering roles, I can only speak on that because I interviewed for that. So there are a lot of resources, and one of the resources I used was Cracking the Coding Interview and also LeetCode. You don't even have to go for the premium subscription. So you get to have different difficulties of coding questions that would test you on your thinking and approach to solving problems. So what I recommend is like using, study your data structures and algorithms, and also like design questions depending on the role. If you're applying for a more senior position level, I think it's important that you also study on system design. For more junior levels, like the important would be your data structures and algorithm questions. And some of the resources you can make use of with leetcode.com. They also have like tutorials on how you can learn the different data structures and algorithms. And you also make sure to understand the solution, because you actually realize that your thought process to approaching solutions improves over time once you start solving those problems.
Awesome. Thanks, Ruth. Let me ask this next question to Samad. Do you feel that you can be yourself as a minority at Microsoft in your role on your team?
Yeah, the thing about my team is it's so diverse. We have a very, very diverse group. I don't feel like a minority at all within this team that we have. But yeah, I can be myself. I feel supported by people on the team, and my work is geared toward what I do best. I'm a full stack developer with a bias toward backend coding, and my work is tend to be on the backend. So, but as far as being a minority, we respect each other, we support each other, and I don't feel anything negative as far as being a minority on my team, and which I'm very, very grateful for.
Awesome. So let me pose this next question to Anthony. Anthony, what is it that you like most about the Microsoft culture and work environment?
I would say the flexibility. Like, for example, you could work for 3 hours, handle some personal business, and then come back and work the rest of your hours in a day. I think that's amazing because it's really finding that work-life balance, or finding a way to make that work-life balance be more seamless. I would say also it's the fact of like proactivity. So like our team is very big on being proactive as much as possible. There are going to be times where you're blocked on something, and finding ways to reach out to different engineers or finding ways to find your own resources to help you in the meantime is like amazing. And the fact that they push that is, I think, a great thing about Microsoft.
Excellent, man. So I'm going to do another follow-up cultural related question. This one I'm going to throw to Gio. And this one's about code switching. So a lot of us go into corporate America. Like I can remember when I graduated from college, I was a software engineer as well. I went to work for AT&T Bell Labs. And to be honest, and I didn't think it was a bad thing, but I felt like I was a paid actor to an extent. Like I'll keep it real. I'm from the hood. Like, so I have a certain dialect that I speak with my friends and that kind of thing. But when I would go to work, I felt like I had to speak a certain way and act a certain way, and that I wasn't 100% really being myself in work. So the question is around, do you feel the need to code switch in your role or department there, or are you encouraged to be yourself there at Microsoft?
So on a day-to-day, you know, I have a strong Jamaican accent, so I just get used to saying stuff twice, just do it by default now, sometimes, and, you know, make people more accustomed to me being in the presence, you know, that's what I really do. And I find that works in the long term, especially, you know, just as a racial equity thing and just cultural equity thing, and make it my duty to do that. But then when you have like a presentation or, you know, something else that you need to like make sure people are getting the first time and not bring too much attention to it, you kind of enunciate a little bit more when you're having the presentation. So like, you know, depending on when, I would code switch a little bit, because at the end of the day, you know, when you have kinfolk, the jokes slap a little bit more. You're not going to run certain jokes like with, you know, non-kinfolk sometimes, because they might not get it and the cultural understanding not exactly there. But at the end of the day, it is, I feel like it's welcomed to just be yourself, and you're more respected that way because you don't feel as if you don't have the dissonance. But I know that some people take it a different way, and I respect that as well. But yeah, I just say, you know, just run out and just be yourself, and it's better for you in the long run. So
awesome. All right, so I see a question. I'm going to try to start integrating some questions that I see from the chat. So I see Marquise Lockhart had a question about, you know, advice for someone interested in being potentially a program manager at Microsoft. So Smith, if you're still with us, I'll throw this question to you. So I don't know, Smith, if you're still with us.
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. Let me take a step back before I go into the details of the question. So Microsoft, unfortunately or fortunately, depends on how you look at it, we tend to do things our own way. So we call every non-developer at Microsoft like a PM. So the term program manager is it's used across Microsoft loosely. So obviously, from an industry perspective, we have what we call product management, we have program management, we have technical program manager. So they're kind of different flavors. At Microsoft, we lump everybody into that kind of PM umbrella. So, and I actually wear multiple hats where I've been doing, activities or work specific that are more attributed to program management versus product management, and I've done both, right? So, program management at Microsoft and product management, both of them shared similar things. So meaning ultimately, as a PM, because you're not writing code, three things that you're responsible for really, and it goes for either a product manager or a program manager. You need to be able to drive clarity for your team. Even if you're managing a project or a product, you need to do that. You need to be able to generate energy, making sure that you get people excited about what they're doing by keeping people excited about things. And then third, you need to deliver results. Obviously, whatever you're doing, if you're building a product, you need to make sure that you build capabilities that your customers ultimately like and find useful to solve a specific set of challenges and pain points they have, right? If you're managing a project or a program, you need to make sure that you deliver on time, you make sure that the stakeholders are happy with the results, that you actually achieve a set of objectives. So similar. Now, when it comes to product management, obviously there's certain things that are unique to that a set of skill set that are required that from a design perspective, right? So if someone were to ask you during an interview process about, how do you go about, I don't know, building the next interface for a modern interface for the iPad or whatever, some kind of devices. Like you need to know what are the right questions to ask, understanding your audience and all that stuff, all the way to monetizations, to personas, and all that stuff, right? So there's certain things that are unique to each, but there's a set of common things that as a PM or product manager, you need to have those. That's cool.
Awesome. I think that you probably hit the nail on the head for a lot of the folks that are interested in the program management opportunities. So I appreciate that, Smith. So let me ask a question and get Sam involved in the discussion. Sam, are you still with us? Okay, I see you popped up there. So, okay,
yes,
perfect.
I had to attend to a life site situation, so he jumped off.
Oh, okay, no problem. All right, so let me throw a question at Tereme Kidzwa. Tereme Kidzwa, if you're ready. My question is around what type of support is offered to those who are newly hired at Microsoft?
Okay, so I'll answer this coming from my personal experiences as a new hire. I moved across continents, and when I got to start my job, I had a support structure already set in place. There was someone that was there to mentor me, and also someone there to onboard me and to show me around, and to get to know the values of the company, and to also answer many questions that I had. And as a new hire, I had so many of them. Also, moving from South Africa to Vancouver, I never needed to worry about where I would live or how I was going to fend for myself. Because I had sponsorship, I had a place to live. I was able to in the first few months, and I had financial assistance to be able to fend for myself during that time. So yes, I think broadly speaking, that's what I would mention here.
Awesome. Thank you for that insight. So I understand we have a recruiter from the team, Brianne, that is on hand to give us a little bit of insight onto how to prepare for interviews. So Brianne, if you're ready to do that, I think now would be a good time. Is Brianne still with
me? Yes, I am here. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are. As Will mentioned, I am the lead recruiter for business applications and platform. And while I don't necessarily recruit for every single level, I mostly focus on our principal and senior level software engineers. I've spent quite a bit of time recruiting for HBCU Connect events with partnership with Jesse. And so I just wanted to share, when it comes to the interviews here at Microsoft, the biggest thing, honestly, is to ensure that you are bringing your full self and making sure, of course, that you prepare for the technical.
Uh-oh, Brian just cut off. I'm not sure. It's an internet issue. But I'll give you a couple seconds. Hopefully that Brianne comes back. If not, we'll do a quick round robin, because I love to get some insight from our panelists on. Are you back?
I guess I'm back.
Okay, yeah, you paused
Hopefully on the East Coast, so this Wi-Fi is probably tired from the day. But all in all, each of your recruiters will be providing you with a in-depth interview prep guide, and some do still have bandwidth to do one-on-one interview prep in depth. But I'm not sure where you all lost me, but the biggest thing, whether you're doing PM or SWE, is just ensuring that you, of course, do your due diligence with respect to the resources that are provided. But I think oftentimes where we see downfalls is within the interview, when you are swayed in the direction that may be different from the original direction you were going in. That's an opportunity to show your collaboration skills versus, pushing back and continuing down the route that you went. I think that's the biggest downfall we see in interviews across the board, but just ensure that you take every component of the interview prep guide and recognize where the parallels are from your past experience. Have questions prepared for future experience with respect to the interviewers, as well as the scope of work. And then have fun. I don't know if y'all heard me say that part, but I remember my interviews like it was yesterday. Left the interviews cheeks red, sore from just smiling all day. But all in all, if you all do have any questions, Brian Thompson, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Love this group, love this team. It's my favorite team I've partnered with across Microsoft in my 5 years. So if y'all are interested, please do apply. And y'all have people like Justin as sponsors that you'll have upon arrival. And then peers that you see on this panel with you every step of the way when it comes to having community here at Microsoft.
Awesome, Brian. Thank you for that insight for our candidates. And just out of respect for time, we have a couple of minutes left. Now, I don't know if you all noticed, but in the chat, Ruth has been dropping the LinkedIn profiles of our panelists. So I would highly encourage you all to reach out, network, build a connection to some of the folks here that have volunteered themselves to share their experiences and opportunities. And as you can see, I don't know if you all are familiar with a lot of the events that we do at HBCU Connect, but the companies that we partner with, they have to do a lot of work to bring folks together to have a good event. And as you can see, Microsoft brought 9 different Black employees that are doing some awesome work at Microsoft, brought them here to share their experiences and opportunities here for you today. And I think that speaks volumes to what kind of company Microsoft is, and particularly the BAP organization. So thank you to all of our panelists for volunteering your time, for sharing your experiences. And of course, thank you to our candidates for coming. And so with that being said, let me talk a little bit about next steps. And then I'm going to pass it to Ruth Isaboke to close us out with words of encouragement for our candidates. So quick notes on next steps to our candidates. Make sure to submit your resume to us at hbcuconnect.com/BAP or BAP. We will email this over to you in a follow-up email, so you don't have to worry about sending me, an email with your resume. Just go to the link, upload your latest resume. If you've already uploaded your latest resume as a part of the process to get you here tonight, then no worries. You don't have to do anything. We're going to share your resume with the team, with the BAP team at Microsoft. They'll have a chance to review your resumes, but I also encourage you to go online to Microsoft's career site as well to apply for opportunities, because we have had folks that have come to our events and have gone on to proactively apply for jobs at Microsoft and have been hired. Okay, so that's the opportunity as well. But you are, like I said, in the right place at the right time. So make sure to reach out to some of the connections that you've made tonight. And with that, let me thank you all for coming, and let me pass it on to Ruth, who's been instrumental in helping us pull this event off. Ruth Isaboke, if you are ready.
Right. Thank you so much. So my name is Ruth Isaboke. I work as a senior manager on people operations, and in particular, diversity and inclusion. So you can see how I'm smiling, you know, from molar to molar, because this event is right up my alley. I feel so honored and blessed to provide support towards advancing inclusive hiring. I bring greetings from and appreciation from my leaders and recruiting partners, and we are so grateful for your time. We don't take it for granted. I also am the chair of the Blacks at Microsoft group for this team. And so we didn't get to talk about that, but the ERGs, which are the employee resource groups, are a big source of community and connection for us. Many of the people you saw on the panel today are leaders in our Blacks at Microsoft group for this organization. And so we encourage you, apply, you'll get the link, apply, get us your resume, connect with us on LinkedIn. As you can see, Microsoft is a phenomenal place. I can go on and talk about, you know, how I've, you know, evolved, changed teams, and have enjoyed my time here, but so have everybody else. But BAP in particular is a pretty special place. And BAP is the business applications and platform. And, you know, it's a 3,000 plus people organization. So there's much to do and a lot to learn. And we are committed to hiring diverse talents, and to grow and promote them as well, not just hiring them. I think one of the things we didn't talk about was also some of the characteristics we look for, you know, which are like growth mindsets, authenticity. Yes, we don't encourage people to cover. We want you to be yourself and bring your full self to work. We want you to, we like to see people who are adaptable and agile, right? You know what the software industry is like. There's a lot of change. And so how comfortable are you with change? How well do you work with others and collaborate? That's something we also look forward to. And there's one other thing that I like to talk about, which is you don't have to be extroverted, but you need to be proactive and show excitement or generate energy around your work. Some of the people you heard talk today on the panel, they are not extroverts, I promise you, but you can see how excited and excitable they were about the work that they do. So that's something to also keep in mind. But we're just so grateful to have you all. And thank you so much, Will. I am so impressed at the organization of HBCU Connect, and I hope to do many more events with you. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So to those of you that don't know, there's a lot of work that has to happen behind the scenes for us to be able to invite you to these events, for all of these folks from Microsoft to show up on the panel. So a big shout out to Ruth, to you as well, for pulling this together. I was super impressed with the representation, you know, in the panel for our candidates. So I appreciate that. And then a big shout out to Jesse as well, who's always behind the scenes supporting these events and perpetuating these events, because I think it's important as well. If you are new to HBCU Connect, one thing you'll find out is that Microsoft has been consistent from the very first engagement about 10 years ago. They have been doing things to continue to represent in this particular community every single year, and more providing opportunities. And the results are shown. A gentleman just came on video who I've recently connected with, who was hired from one of our previous events, you know, and he wanted to come in and support this event as well. So these are real opportunities. Make sure to take advantage. All right, so look out for an email from us. Let me thank again the Microsoft team. Thank you all for your time. And to our candidates, thank you for showing up, because without you all showing up, these events would not be possible. So thank you, and best of luck to you, and look out for that email. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.